How do we do ambiguous work and do it well? Whether you're at a small startup or a large enterprise company, especially later in your career, you can probably find yourself doing ambiguous work. This is work with unclear goals and many unknowns, probably even unknown unknowns. It can look like doing research, building alignment across teams, or just figuring out what to build. It is very common doing this type of work to feel like your wheels are spinning in the mud and you're not sure if you're making any progress. So in this video, I wanted to take a look at some of the techniques and approaches to ambiguous work that have helped me. Maybe they can help you as well. Without further ado, the first technique is to start with the end goal and then break it down recursively until we have something less ambiguous. To do that, I like to ask myself this specific question: what can I learn or do to get me closer to accomplishing this? So for example, say you're at a large software company and you need to improve the quality of logs across the company. Okay, that's a pretty vague goal, but what can we learn or do to get closer to accomplishing it? A few things come to mind. We'll need to figure out, what does quality mean in this context and how do we measure it? What does success look like for this project and why do we think so? What are the different logging systems at the company and which ones are we most interested in improving? Now, if you're doing truly ambiguous work, it could be that even these questions are themselves ambiguous. But that's fine, you just continue breaking them down. So if the goal now is to understand what does quality look like in this context, what can we learn or do to get closer to accomplishing that? Well, we can identify all the stakeholders and figure out what it is specifically they care about. We could look at the metrics we already have for logging and try to suss out what's missing. We could brainstorm a bunch of possible definitions about quality and then shop that around. So now we have something much less ambiguous, some action items we can actually attack. So to run through a different example, let's say totally hypothetically, I'm looking to build a startup to empower activists. So starting with my high level goal to find an idea for a startup I can build to empower activists that I am uniquely advantaged to build that could potentially grow into a business. Okay, that's pretty vague. But what can I learn or do to get me closer to accomplishing that? Well, I could look at what are the pain points that activists are currently facing. I could look at what are some existing solutions out there and where do they fall short. I could look at what are the different types of businesses that cater to activists and what business models are most successful. Now, figure out the pain points that activists face. Oh, that's still pretty ambiguous. Can I break it down even further? What can I learn or do to get me closer to understanding those? Well, I could ask ChatGPT, I could ask Twitter, I could talk to some activists that I actually know. And now we have something more specific that we can actually do. Now, it's important to make a distinction between these types of action items and a task list in a traditional software engineering project. With software engineering, you might break a project down into milestones and tasks. The idea being once you finish all the tasks, the project is done. But with ambiguous work, we understand that there are unknown unknowns. Even if I go through all these action items, ask ChatGPT, ask Twitter, ask people in real life, I still may not have a good understanding of those pain points. But I know I'm going to be closer to that understanding, and from that new vantage point, I may see new action items that I can take that's going to help close that gap. And this transitions into the second approach, which is to treat ambiguous work as exploration. I like to think of ambiguous work as exploring this undiscovered territory. And you've heard rumors of a promised land somewhere that way. And it's your job to chart a course from here to there. Now, you can't say to yourself, this week I'm going to get 10% closer to the destination, because you don't know what mountains, rivers, or swamps are between here and there. And you're not even sure that there is the right direction. In the same way, I can't say to myself or my manager, this week I'm going to finalize what quality means in this context, because I don't have control over that. It could be that when trying to answer that question, I discover a whole host of new questions that need to be answered first. It could be that everyone I talk to says, oh, you really need to talk to so-and-so who's on vacation until the end of the year. I found that whenever I try to set even short-term goals for ambiguous work based on results, and then things go awry through no fault of my own, I can often be discouraged and demotivated. I'll just drop in this life tip. I found that my mood is as much of a resource as time or money. My mood is a resource. I need to treat it accordingly. So I can't set a target. This week I'm going to figure out the most important pain points for activists. But I can set a target. This week I'm going to reach out to 100 activists and see if they're willing to help me understand the space. So when you are goaling on the exploration, when you come across an impassable canyon, that's not a failure or a mistake, that's successful exploration. And that information is going to be critical to prevent yourself or your company from moving in that direction later. Now, when you are focusing on the process, it's important to time box things. If you spent 2 weeks crushing the process, but haven't learned anything or aren't any closer to answers, it could be you need to reevaluate your approach. But understand that even that reevaluation is a successful part of the exploration. The final technique, at least for this video, is to document your journey and create a map. I like to maintain a living document of my current understanding of the problem, the open questions I still have, and what I've learned along the way. I'll keep track of other things I've read, conversations I've had. I'll try to summarize them and explain how they've contributed to my evolving understanding of the problem. I find this helpful for many reasons. It helps keep me focused and on target. I found that learning with the intention to teach others is an extremely powerful tool. That's partially why I'm making this video. It helps document for yourself and your manager the work that actually went into this. It also helps to organize the data you collect along the way, which you'll eventually use to build your road to the promised land. And most importantly, it can help others going on similar journeys. They may not be looking for the same destination, but maybe their journey takes them across the landscape that you've been mapping out. If you make something available that helps them and you're open about the questions you still have, maybe they can help fill in some of the empty areas on your own map. And it doesn't hurt your career or reputation if people start using your document to onboard to the problem space. Perhaps an example of minimum viable value. Okay, so in review, 3 approaches to ambiguous work that can hopefully make it less ambiguous. Start with a high-level goal. Ask yourself what you can learn or do to help accomplish it, and keep breaking it down recursively. Treat ambiguous work as exploration rather than a race to a predefined destination. Finally, create a living map to help keep yourself focused, help others catch up to you, and make it easy for them to help you. All right, I'll close this video as I usually do and say, if you have other techniques or approaches to ambiguous work that have helped you, or if you have questions that you want me to take a stab at, be a champ and leave a comment. As always, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, watch out for tigers. Okay, we're gonna do a behind the scenes thing again. Back in San Francisco, this is my second take on this video. I tried to record it a week ago, but this apartment is not nearly as nice as the previous one, specifically the lighting. And so probably there's some B-roll right now of this giant light that I bought. I also tried to get that fake brick wall in the background to make things nicer, but that didn't end up working. Hopefully all of that makes this video a little nicer to watch. I don't know, but when I did find myself struggling with ambiguous work, both at work and with this startup, I thought that was a great time to kind of make this type of video, collect my thoughts on proper approaches to this type of thing. I think it's something a lot of us struggle with when you're just writing code and you need the test to pass. It's pretty straightforward. But once things get, ambiguous and muddy, it can be a lot harder to make progress. And so having a framework and techniques to kind of stay on track and make sure that we're actually getting somewhere, I think is extremely useful. So of course, if you have any tips or tricks, I'd love to hear those as well. What else? I don't know. I guess I can show some of the cool B-roll I got from hikes around Seattle. That was pretty epic. And otherwise, that's it. That's the end of the video. So thanks for watching, and see you around.